It's really a pleasure for me to come up here to Syracuse to visit with all of you and to visit with the students. Any time spent out of Washington is always time extremely well spent from my perspective. I spend a lot of time in the region, of course, in South and Central Asia, but I also try to get around the country as well to tell people about what we're doing and to meet with the diaspora communities too. It's an important part of what we're trying to do in terms of outreach and trying to develop partnerships and so forth with Americans here in the United States. A lot of people warned me about coming to Syracuse in January. You know, said that I might have a lot of snow, and sure enough, I understand you all have had 115 inches of snow and counting so far. But it doesn't seem to have deterred you whatsoever in carrying on all of your important duties. I must say, I wish Washington had some of the same expeditionary spirit as all of you do. It takes only about 2 or 3 inches to bring Washington to a complete grinding halt. And in fact, I understand tomorrow that we're in for 5 or 6 inches, according to Jimmy. So I may be looking for an adjunct professorship here for 2 or 3 days to bide my time while they clear the snow from the runways. But snow or no snow, I'm very, very happy to be here today to join you, to talk to such a dynamic group of academics and young leaders and students. And I particularly want to thank Dr. Cecilia Van Holland, who's an old friend I know from Sri Lanka and from India days, and I really appreciate her introduction and her invitation to come up and speak today. So maybe that's something we can talk about. In fact, we do have a very good dialogue between the United States and India on all of East Asia, including China. And we want to, as part of this new strategic partnership, expand our dialogues into areas like Central Asia, the Gulf, and Africa, because I think there's, again, a lot of common interests and a lot of opportunities for greater synergies in what we're doing. We don't really see the development of our relationship and our partnership with India through the prism of China or Pakistan or any other country. We are exploring it on the merits of the very significant benefits to us of greater cooperation with India. And I think India sees it the same way. India is developing very quickly a partnership with China. China is India's fastest growing economic trade partner. And I think those interests have encouraged both countries to manage some of the sensitive border issues and other issues that you face, such as Arunachal Pradesh and so forth. So I think, again, both of us will continue to engage China. China is a critically important country for both of our countries. But we see them, again, separately on their own merits, and we're not developing our partnership to in any way contain China or anything like that. Very good question. You're right. I mean, there are a great many challenges that India still faces, and I think the Indians themselves will be the first to talk about those. And I think that's really probably the foundation of our confidence, is the fact that India does have a democracy, and it does have the democratic institutions to deal with a lot of the problems that you face. One example that I cited in my speech, but I think is a very important one that we're trying to duplicate around the world, is how to deal with corruption. And one of the very successful initiatives that the Indians took was this right to information law, which I think when it was first passed, I'm not sure that the Indian Parliament really understood what they were passing and the significance of it. There was quite an interesting article today, I think, in the New York Times or the Washington Post about, in fact, somebody who's used the right to information law to great advantage, and in fact, has been so successful in exposing corruption that the people who are being exposed have come after him and in fact killed him in one instance. Now that's an extreme example, but it does show that it has empowered local activists to expose corruption at every single level, and has been, I think, a powerful disincentive to corruption. And we hope to try to work with India as part of this new open government dialogue that I talked about to take that example, and apply it to countries that are interested in learning more, and teach them how to pass their own law to do exactly that. Because I think it really has had a major impact. And corruption is one of these issues that, if not addressed, has a really corrosive impact on the people's trust in government. It's something that, as you know, in Afghanistan has become one of our highest priorities to address corruption, because it is such an important part of people's faith in their own government. And as long as it doesn't get addressed, there won't be that confidence that is needed to allow development and other priorities to go forward. I think that there's probably no more important foreign policy priority for the President and the Secretary than Afghanistan and Pakistan, because it has a direct impact on our homeland security. And so that's why we've made such an important effort in Afghanistan and Pakistan, particularly in Pakistan. I would say that Pakistan has become an even higher foreign policy priority just in the time that I've been in office. Because of the many challenges that Pakistan faces, the floods and so forth, but also because many of the terrorists that would do us harm are still based in the safe havens in the border areas between Pakistan and Afghanistan. And so we have made a significant effort to significantly ramp up our civilian assistance to Pakistan, but we've also made a significant effort to help to provide particularly counterterrorism and counterinsurgency training and weapons to help them to deal with these problems, but also to make sure that that those weapons are not used against India. And third, we've established a strategic dialogue with the Pakistanis to systematically look at all the areas of our cooperation, education to energy to governance and human rights and many other areas, to look at how we can work together and how we can set concrete benchmarks for achieving progress. And I think that those are bearing fruit, because there has been a lot of progress. A lot of that's sort of a little bit difficult to see, but there is progress. But still, there's quite a long way to go in Pakistan. And I think we have been troubled by the recent rise of extremism, as manifested by the assassination of Governor Taseer, and the lack of reaction particularly from moderates inside Pakistan, which I think was very disturbing to many of us and to many moderates inside Pakistan who were really afraid to speak out. So it just shows, as Secretary Clinton and the President have said, that it's very, very important now for moderates from across the spectrum in Pakistan to come together and to unite. And that means the academics and the business people and people inside government and everywhere else to take a clear stand against extremism, to take a clear stand in favor of improved governance and dealing with a lot of the challenges that Pakistan faces.
To ensure that the Chinese experiment in Sri Lanka ends in a failure, and that these two countries prove themselves to be true democracy and true defenders of minority rights.
Well, there are a lot of questions in that one question, so let me try to unpack some of those and address some of them. First of all, I think you overstate the Chinese role in the events of the last 3 or 4 years. It's true that China has become one of the largest donor there, and that they have not tried to use that power to encourage progressive change inside Sri Lanka. And I hope that as China develops and becomes more and more of a world power, that they will take on more of those global responsibilities, as India and the United States are now doing. But first of all, with respect to the LTT was a terrorist organization. We put the LTT on our terrorist list beginning in 1997 because of the many brutal murders that they committed. And so obviously we were willing to support the government in their fight against the LTT. But at the end of the war, we believe now that after May 2009, when military hostilities ended, we have consistently called for the Sri Lankan government to pursue reconciliation, to resettle the IDPs, the internally displaced people, as quickly as possible, and to allow a new indigenous leadership to emerge in northern Sri Lanka through democratic elections. We've also called for an improvement in human rights, which we believe have disproportionately affected the Tamil people over time. And we've called for a process of accountability for first investigating what happened at the end of the war when many civilians were killed, and then ensuring that there is accountability for those who were responsible.